Good day, everybody. Zack here, and welcome to another episode of Daily Rider. Our guest today is a 2025 Honda Goldwing. That is 850 pounds, 6 cylinders, 1800 cc's, cruise control, power, everything, heated everything, with a little dollop of Apple CarPlay on top and an MSRP of $30,000. Now, 2025 is special for this bike because it marks 50 years since the first Goldwing hit the streets back in 1975, and for that reason, I thought it would be fitting to take this bike for a spin to work and talk about how the Goldwing has evolved, how it has innovated, and how it has become the legendary king of motorcycle touring that it is. Get comfortable, everybody. Here we go! All right, before we get going on this daily ride of the Honda Goldwing, a quick reminder that the sponsor of this episode is very simple. It is RevZilla. The YouTube channel that you're watching is also an e-commerce platform where parts, accessories, apparel for you and your motorcycle are available. And when you purchase at RevZilla, a little bit of the proceeds go into making videos like this. That's really the whole message. Next time you need something for you or your bike, we hope that you think about Daily Rider and RevZilla. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Okay, the mighty Goldwing. You got a 6-cylinder engine here, which is quite a thing to look at. Just on one side, you have, of course, 3 exhaust pipes coming out the bottom there and 3 little sort of mock intakes up here. And you got the same on the other side. It is a wide motor, it's big, and in 2018, I'll mention that the displacement went from 1832 cc's to 1833 cc's, but it was actually a much more complicated update than just making it slightly larger. The bore was made smaller and the stroke was made longer so that the total engine length could be made shorter, therefore helping with making the new bike that came out in 2018 a little bit more compact, which is a decent segue, I think, into the fact that 2018 was the last major update of the Goldwing. It was when the engine got a total overhaul and indeed the whole chassis. Not least of which, this crazy front end, which is a Hossack-style sort of double wishbone situation that isolates suspension travel from braking forces and such. Kind of an interesting little piece of tech. I'm not sure how well you can see it. Single shock and sort of a dual A-arm thing, not unlike a piece of like automotive suspension or something. Pretty cool. You got big old 6-pot calipers up here, rubber lines, and they are linked to the rear brakes, which we'll talk about as we ride as well. The 50th anniversary Goldwing has this special paint scheme here, which one of my Instagram commenters called neon brown, which I think is excellent. One of the cool details, I'm not sure if you can see, if we can get up close, you can see there's little Goldwings, these little sort of tiny little Goldwing logos built into the paint. Interesting little flourish and a nice touch on what is otherwise quite a striking and yet tame colorway. Okay, other facets of the Goldwing, of course, you've got passenger accommodations that are more throne than seat, I would say. We'll talk a little bit about passenger accommodations when the time comes, of course, and integrated luggage, which has been a little bit of a sticking point for the update of the Goldwing in 2018 because overall luggage capacity got a little bit smaller. As you can see inside, it's a little bit awkward, right? Like there's all these sort of like lumps and seams and bulges. So if you want to stuff it full of clothing, it works pretty well. If you want to put sort of like a box in there or a laptop or something, it gets a little bit trickier to do. The top box, on the other hand, did get a little bit larger in 2021 maybe, something like that, because when the bike came out in 2018, people were quick to point out that 2 full-size helmets did not fit in the top case, which of course is touring sacrilege. So, got a little bit larger, and I just have my backpack in here, so I don't have to wear it on my back, and obviously you can see it works quite nicely for that. I don't remember the exact liters. Perhaps we'll put it on screen, but it is all controlled by a key fob in my pocket. So this little button here is what opened this one, and there's a button on the bottom here that opened this one. And when you walk away from the bike, it is locked, which can be kind of a pain in the tail if you leave the keys somewhere else. Those are, I think, the sort of major points about the Goldwing. You got luggage, you got comfort, you got a big stonking engine, you got an interesting front end, and it all adds up to be, well, a pretty kind of special experience, in my opinion. So let's fire the sucker up and hit the road, shall we? There's so much more to talk about. But for now, we'll flick this ignition on. We will wait for the dash to power up here. GL 1800 Goldwing. Honda, of course, is reminding me that I am responsible for safe operation, etc. And once my headset connects here, Apple CarPlay will be ready to rock wirelessly. You can also plug it in here. It's got a little foam sleeve and a cord that Honda very generously provided for me. But the automatic wireless thing is pretty slick. And if you have a car that's built in the past 5 to 8 years, it probably has this already, but kind of new to the world of motorcycling and a fun little feature as we will talk about. All right, let's do the single push button here for the starter and listen to this baby purr. Oh, well, hello there. It's a very smooth and refined engine, but as we'll discover, it's got a raw side, I think. It is a flat 6 after all. Same engine configuration as a Porsche 911, which is probably a coincidence, but at any rate, it's got a little rasp. If you ask it to do just the right things. Okay, we're gonna go suspension in single rider, no passenger, no luggage, because my backpack doesn't count. We're in tour mode. Got just about a full tank, 26 miles on the clock and 181 miles of range. Let's see, on my Google Calendar, I see that I have daily rider recording scheduled from 9 to 11 a.m. Well, I'm right on time then, eh? All right, everybody, let's ride. All right, now that we're on the open road of sorts, we can talk about some more specifications around the Gold Wing. I mentioned the exact engine size, 1833 cc's. It has a 5.5 gallon gas tank. The filler cap is right betwixt my legs, and we'll talk more about fuel tank size and range a little bit later. But when the tank was full and it was on the daily rider scales, tipped him at 852 pounds. Which I think is safe to say a big motorcycle. Luckily, the seat height is 29.3 inches, I believe, which you see as I'm flat-footed here. You can see I got a pretty good bend in my knee with a 34-inch inseam. It is pretty wide as motorcycles go, but obviously Honda, put some effort into making it slim in the middle so that it would be, the standover height would be not too bad, and I would say the engineers succeeded in large part. As for horsepower and torque numbers, I don't know if Honda technically has a claim, but I happened to look at a dyno chart for a late model Goldwing recently, and I think if you put this sucker on a dyno, you'd find just under 100 horsepower and just under 110 foot-pounds of torque. Yes, 110 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel, which we'll talk about more as we get into the ride here. And the last spec would be price, and I think it might depend a little bit on which trim you get, and maybe the 50th anniversary one is slightly more expensive. I believe this bike we are riding right now is $30,200 MSRP, which is, well, it's a lot for a motorcycle. Then again, you get a lot. More to the point, Zach, what's it like to sit on? Is it comfortable? Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's comfortable, all right. It might be a slightly different riding position than you're expecting. Maybe you'd expect it to be, slightly sportier or slightly more reclined, depending on your impression of a Goldwing. It is ultimately really, really neutral. Feet ahead of you just a little bit. Your spine's basically bolt upright with a real gentle, easy reach to the handlebars, which are set, if anything, a little bit low. All right, now we're merging out into the Goldwing's natural habitat, the open road. You roll it on in 5th gear, 2,500 RPM. Bob's your uncle, you're going 75 miles an hour. I'm not sure exactly what you're seeing from the camera on my chin. For me, I can see clean over the top of the windscreen, nice and easy at 6'2", but you also might hear a little bit of buffeting right now because the wind is hitting me right in the middle of the face shield. If I go over to this switch here, I can push the windscreen up, and now it's a little bit quieter. Well, it's a nice, pleasant 70-degree overcast morning here in Los Angeles, but I'm wearing vented gloves and I'm feeling a little sorry for myself, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to reach down here and turn on the heated grips. I'm going to put them on setting 2 out of 5, which you see you get a little notification up here, and pretty soon I will be even more comfortable. I could turn on the heated seat too, but I'm not cold enough. I'm not going to do that. Now, one of the things that you could argue is a problem with the Goldwing being so gosh darn comfortable is the overall range, which in general is pretty good. Fuel mileage you'll probably find to be in the low 40s, mid 40s. It depends how you ride. 5.5 gallons of gas, you're going to clear 200 miles probably. If you're anything like me, on my long road trip I did a few years ago, I was galloping along the highway pretty good. I ended up averaging 38 miles per gallon, and with that I think I had to stop realistically every 190 miles or so. And when a bike like this won't go 200 miles because it's so flippin' comfortable, suddenly you're sort of like, I wish I had more range. I wish I had a bigger fuel tank. And because the fuel tank got smaller on this edition of the Goldwing compared to the outgoing GL 1800, it made people question Honda. You know, like, oh, well, it's more efficient now because it's more slim and compact and, you know, a little bit smaller, believe it or not, than the last edition of the Goldwing. So Honda figured, we'll make the fuel tank a little smaller, being more efficient. But because range is such a big thing with touring, people have been disappointed. I can't say I've been disappointed with the Goldwing's range, but it's a double-edged sword. You know, a bike is comfortable enough to log a lot of miles, you just want it to go farther. And on the flip side, if you are uncomfortable before you need gas, then all of a sudden the tank seems like it's too big, right? It's a tricky paradox. One of the things I just love about the Goldwing is this double wishbone Hossack style front end here. The little tie rod ends are sort of visible in the cockpit here, and I'm going to point the camera down to see if you can see them, but you get to watch them kind of dance along as you hit bumps on the freeway, and it's an interesting little kind of like glimpse at the skeleton of the bike, and it's sort of a delightful way to appreciate how much work the suspension is doing as you sort of glide along and can really barely feel bumps in the road, but you get to watch these little things go pop, 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 pop. And for a bike that's so kind of polished and covered in plastic, literally and figuratively, it's a fun little glimpse at the core of the machine. Don't forget to talk about mirrors, Zach. Okay. Mirrors are quite good, dead smooth, a little far away. I can't reach them, right, from my riding position, which means the window behind is sometimes feels like not quite big enough, but in general, pretty good mirrors. I'm gonna go 4 stars. All right, slowing down off the freeway, so I'm gonna drop down the old windshield. And just like that, we are in to the neighborhood for the Round Town Challenge. Hey, a couple of cool air-cooled bikes there. What do you think about the Goldwing's ability to do footless stops? Yeah. Whoa, that was a pretty good one. Okay. 1 for 1. My confidence is up now. Here's the thing about riding the Goldwing around an urban to suburban area like this and, you know, challenging yourself maybe or maybe not to doing footless stops. If you read any review of the Goldwing from 1975 onward, you'll hear the reviewer say, once you're going 10-15 miles an hour, all that weight, it just melts away. You know, whether it was the 600 pound or 500, 600 and something pound one in 1975, or the 900 pound one in 1990, or the 850 pound one in 2025, people will just say, oh, the weight just melts away. And that's true. Once the Goldwing is moving 10-15 miles an hour, it really does feel surprisingly kind of agile and predictable. But when you're not going 10 or 15 miles an hour, when you're going, you know, 8 or 5 or 2 or 0 miles per hour, the weight is very present. Does it have a low center of gravity? Sure. Is it well designed? Absolutely. But you can't beat physics. And oh boy, that was a pretty good one too. Okay, 3 for 4. That's not bad. Where the Goldwing is undeniably good, despite its weight, is just sort of predictability and usability. The throttle response is just terrific. The clutch feel is really good. The bike has loads of torque, and the engine, the way the engine engages with the clutch and sort of talks to the rider as you use it is really good. It's surprisingly communicative for a bike that is on the outside, you know, very plush and large and might feel like it would be sort of numb to ride, but it's not. And then when you get on the power a little bit, it makes kind of a cool noise. So is the Goldwing a good round town bike? No, not really. But It's an Olympic weightlifter in a jacket and slacks and a collared shirt. It's a massive thing that is as polite and gentlemanly as you could expect a bike to be, it being this size. On to Lover's Lane, and we can talk about passenger accommodations real quick here. You'll be hard pressed to find a more comfortable throne to sit on. Look at us back here. I got little hand rests. I got my own heated seat controls down here. It's dynamite back here. You're not going to find practically a more comfortable place to be a passenger than the back of a Goldwing. Now, you know, you got your BMW K1600 GTL exclusive. It's got full armrests. You know, you get aftermarket solutions. You got Harleys and Indians that are big full dressers. And are those bikes comfortable on the back? Absolutely, 100%. I'm not trying to split hairs here, but broadly speaking, this type of bike is incredibly comfortable to be a passenger on. If you want your passenger to be happy, this is the machine. And when you get on it, you'll be a little bit happy too. Just love that noise. But how does it do on the Twisty Road, Zach? Well, it must be heavy and awful and just difficult and high effort. No, not even. It's delightful. Is it ultra fast? Is it super agile from side to side? No, not really. It's predictable and easy and heavy, you know? And you run out of ground clearance eventually and you'll drag stuff maybe. But in general, it's a really easy bike to ride, and it's an easy bike to enjoy and like in curves like this. It really feels like motorcycling, you know? I got a lot of comments on Instagram about, why not just buy a Honda Civic? It's the same amount of power and weight, LOL. Yeah, sure. You know, like, you make those jokes all day long, and they'll continue to be a little bit funny as long as motorcycle manufacturers are making motorcycles that weigh the better part of a half ton. But when you swing it through a set of curves, it does feel like riding a motorcycle. It is so fun. You feel really connected, and similar to BMW's telelever front end system, this isolates suspension action from braking forces. So the geometry of the front end is designed to, if we get on the front brakes, as I'll do right now just for a second, the front end doesn't really dive very much. It dives a little bit, and then the rest of the suspension stroke is left to be used. As you drift into corners and get on the brakes, it feels really planted and solid. It doesn't pitch forward and back very much. It's calm and easy. Now, as I said, BMW's had a similar system on its bikes for many years, depending on the model. So it's not necessarily something that's new to motorcycling, but it is an innovation that Honda released with the Goldwing, and it's in a long line of innovations. I mean, the Honda Goldwing was, I don't know if it was the first bike, but it was one of the first bikes to include a tape deck and cruise control and automatically adjustable suspension from the cockpit, air suspension. I don't know, there's like lots of stuff that the Goldwing brought to the market. An airbag. It was the first bike, to maybe the last bike, come to think of it, to have an airbag. But there's lots of stuff that the Goldwing has done over the years that has been on the surface kind of like opulent and, you know, just like luxury for the sake of luxury. But that's where you get features that eventually trickle down into other machines and technology that benefits all of motorcycling. The Goldwing's been an innovator, for sure. All right, red light, good time to talk about brakes. I'm gonna jump on the brakes here, and we're gonna come to a fairly rapid stop. Ooh, I did engage the ABS there. Okie doke. The brakes are linked, like I said. Historically, I do not like linked brakes because it's always clumsy and awkward, and you can feel the bike trying to decide which brake to prioritize, and you can feel the system squeezing one brake more than another or something like that, and it rarely works out very well. But this system's pretty darn good. There are other linked brake systems that I have found to be quite good. The big BMW GS has off-road linked brakes that are pretty impressive. It's gotten better over the years. So if you tried linked brakes 15 years ago or on a bike that is 15 or 20 years old and hated it, just know that in general, manufacturers have gotten better at executing that technology, and the Goldwing is a prime example. All right. Another red light just in time to talk about dash and options. You'd think we'd need a lot of time. Maybe we do. The CarPlay interface here is obviously pretty cool. If you hit this home button, you'll go to the whatever. You'll go to this main menu here where you can go into settings. This is where you can control, you know, all stuff from dash brightness to connections with your mobile device and that kind of thing. Audio, what's in audio? Oh yeah, so it's got speakers. You could play stuff through the speakers, I suppose. Ultimately, the settings, I think, like if you go into function of the motorcycle, you can change your auto cancel turn signal and you can turn off traction control, which we'll get to later. It does not have adaptive suspension. It doesn't have lots of different settings for dialing your suspension up or down or blah blah blah. It has preload in the shock to adjust over here for rider with passenger, or rider with passenger and luggage, but it's actually fairly simple in the grand scheme of things, considering some bikes these days are just like an absolute mess of clicks here and adjustments there, and you don't know which way to go in the menu. There's obviously a lot of buttons here, but some of them are very basic, like you turn the volume up or down, you put the windscreen up or down, stuff like that. Yeah, the last thing is all this business here, which these set and select buttons control this little screen over here with the trip, range, and air temp, which you can adjust a little bit, fuel gauge of course. Ride modes over here, which I think you do with this button over here with mode. So you can see you can go to sport, economy, rain, or tour. I like tour. I think the bike realistically just needs tour. I don't think it needs any other ride modes, but Honda put them on there probably because people would complain if they didn't. It's not as horrendous a mess of buttons as it used to be, but there's still some odd, like there's a home button over here and then there's a home button here, and it goes to the same place, and then you can go back here or you can go back here, and I guess I don't know why those have to exist next to each other. So, you know, maybe there's some improvements there to be made, but it is certainly cleaner than it used to be, and in general pretty easy to use once you kind of get the hang of it. Well, the old quandary of would you buy this bike just for the engine is interesting with the Goldwing, I think, because in some ways, yeah, it's a lovely engine. It's terrifically powerful. It's awesome to use. It sounds cool, and it's unique. There's no other flat six in motorcycling, is there? Not in mainstream motorcycling anyway, unless I'm really forgetting something obvious. But, you know, at the same time, you're probably not getting the Goldwing just for the engine. The engine is just sort of like a facet of what creates and maintains some of the Goldwing mystique and legend. What you're getting a Goldwing for is the fact that it's an awesome touring machine, and the engine is part of that, but probably not the whole reason. Plus, the real fly in the ointment is that BMW K1600, which doesn't have the history or the pedigree of the Honda Goldwing, but by God, that's a good engine. Whew. That engine is just staggeringly good. It's really the only engine that can hold a candle to the Goldwing engine, and for some people's money might be better. It just makes a wicked sound and perfect primary balance, and it's also super torque rich, and I don't know, it's really hard to poke a hole in that armor, I think. So it's surprising, I guess is what I'm saying, that the Goldwing even has a competitor considering how amazing and evolved this engine is. The thing about the Goldwing engine that's so staggering is that it makes 107, 110 foot-pounds of torque at like 1100 RPM, and it idles at 800 or something like that. So, I mean, almost literally, as soon as you let the clutch out from a stop sign or a stoplight and you twist the throttle, you have maximum torque available. The torque curve goes up to 100 or 110, and then it slowly drifts down as RPMs rise. It is otherworldly, and the feeling is special. It's unique. It's really something. All right, so we're coming to the end of the ride here, and there's so much about the Goldwing that I didn't talk about. But one thing I really wanted to touch on was the fact that when the Goldwing came out in 1975, it had a flat 4-cylinder engine, that is a horizontally opposed 4-cylinder. It was liquid cooled. It weighed 600 and some odd pounds. People joked and called it the lead wing. It did not have a fairing. It was just a big naked motorcycle. It was supposed to be ultimate motorcycling. It was supposed to be big and comfortable and impressive in every single way, and it was that. But what people started doing with it basically immediately was touring, was going on long trips, because they could tell that that's what it was good at. And not long after, just within a few years, Honda started adding fairings, and by the early mid 80s there was no naked version anymore. It was only a big touring bike, and I think that is the Honda Goldwing story in a microcosm to some extent. Honda created this huge motorcycle and they thought it would be some sort of ultimate. And when people started taking it across the great country of the United States, taking it on long road trips and using it to what seemed like the best of its ability, Honda kind of pivoted and evolved and turned it into this touring machine. Honda didn't fight what the customer wanted. And I feel like when you ride a Goldwing today, whether it's coming to a stop without putting your feet down somehow, or just having it on the open road at 80 miles an hour, it feels like a bike that has been designed over many, 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 many years to satisfy what the customer wants to do. And if you want to go touring, it's near or at the top of any list. All right, well, on your long travels on your Goldwing, you might at some point come to a gravel road and you'll be thinking, well, how does it handle in the dirt, Zach? Good question. Well, let's just do a quick test. We'll do second gear. So this is second gear at idle. 600, let's call it, yeah, 600, 750 RPM. And I'm just gonna twist the throttle open and see what happens. Surprisingly angry. Okay, I think we're gonna need to go into the menu at a stop in order to get to the, I'm just gonna turn on traction control just to try. Of course, I had it off from before. Smells like burnt rubber. I must have caught something there. Okay. Back. Apple CarPlay. All right, let's try traction control in tour mode. Oh, very, very Honda. Just goes and fell on its face. All right, so let's go sport. See what we got there. Still very conservative. I mean, it's a huge touring bike, right? Come on, Zach, what do you want? Let's try rain mode and see if it can get even more conservative. No, not really. It feels the same. All right. Let's just go in and like turn off the TC one more time here. And we'll just have a little bit more fun while we have the rest of this dirt road to mess around with our... Oh, heads up there, G-Stang. Coming through on my 850-pound flat tracker. Spun up over the railroad tracks. All right, can we do a wheelie on a Goldwing, you think? Let's do first gear, and we'll do a little clutch pop here. Oh, that was kind of a lame one. I think it might have spun the tire. Let's try one more time, shall we? That was pretty frightening. But when it comes to backing it in, I don't think we're going to find the same joy. Let's get cautious ABS and and you can't really, you can get the back tire to chirp a little bit, but you can't really get the you know, the front end real loaded up because of that fancy front end, and also because there's too much weight. In fact, someone in the Instagram feed suggested a stoppie, and I was like, no, I don't think so. You get a little slide there. You just dump the clutch. All right, how many parking spaces do we have? Mostly empty, but I think there's only really a gap of two plus. That's going to be tricky for a bike that's this big and long. All right, we're going to line up here as close to this Ford Transit as we can without scratching the paint. Oh, Jesus, sketchy. All right, we're going to go full lock left, feet up. Oh, are we going to do it? Oh, look at that. 2 point something, 2.2 maybe. That's not bad for a big fella. Yeah, like I said, Olympic weightlifter, but, you know, spry, polite, helpful. Not that weightlifters aren't. All right. Well, I would call that a successful ride to work on the Goldwing. And now we can take a listen to that engine one more time, just in case you didn't get enough of it along the way. It's got a little bit of Porsche 911, no? I just think it's terrific. T flippin' rific. All right, well, as usual, enough about what I think. What do you think, and what do you want to know about the Gold Wing? Let's dive in, shall we? First question here is from Rusty Farm Tool, who says, should I trade in my 2015 Goldwing for a 2025 Goldwing? Is the jump in technology worth it for the latest and greatest at 10 years? Yeah, I mean, having ridden both the 5th generation, the last generation, and the new one, the 6th generation that came out in 2018, it really is better in my mind. It's just a more refined recipe. Everything works a little bit better. The technology is a little bit better. The integration of features and things is better. It has more modern technology, and plus it's a little slimmer and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, my gut tells me yes. But here's the thing about the Goldwing. Like, if you just want to get on it and have a big, smooth, comfortable motorcycle to crush a bunch of miles, and then stop and get a tuna melt or visit your family or go to a motorcycle race or a car race or whatever the heck you're doing, then no, I think foundationally, the comfort and the long haul ability of a Goldwing is comparable. When it first went to a flat 6-cylinder engine in 1988, I believe 89, with a GL 1500, that bike is pretty comfortable and pretty good. And I mean, you can get one of those for, I don't know, not very much money. Ultimately, yes, this new bike is better. It's much more refined. The front end makes a big difference in my mind. I just love the front end. And of course, the engine is more compact and the whole bike is just a little more svelte. You know, the headlights are probably better, just stuff like that. You know, this like technology has evolved, has advanced. But if all you want to do is crush miles, I don't know, your 2015 is probably pretty flippin' good at that. Plus, you're probably used to all the buttons by now. Next question is from Tenny80. Yeah. Is it anything beyond a graphics kit on the 50th anniversary? No, not really. But come on, have some respect. Just kidding. Fair question. Next question is from Julian Sedger, who says, favorite feature that you wish was on more bikes? Ooh, good question. Couple things come to mind. One is a double wishbone front end thing, the sort of like fancy front end, which, like I said, BMW has a version of as well. For me, that does a lot. And I don't think that more bikes should, like, I don't wish a Yamaha MT-07 had that front end on there. I don't care. I don't want it to be simple and work and do the thing a normal motorcycle does. But touring motorcycles that don't have some sort of like front end that isolates suspension action from braking forces and that kind of thing, they're like fighting with maybe not one arm behind their back, but one eye closed or something. That's not as good. Like, this is more advanced. I just don't know how you can argue otherwise. It's a fantastic system. It's more complicated. It's more expensive. It's more difficult to build, I'm sure. I just think it's objectively more advanced. Other thing I'd say is wireless CarPlay. And I know that's the thing that's going to trickle down eventually. Just like every time I use some sort of like in-house system that a company has built, like, oh no, use our navigation and plug it into our app and then just like link it with it never freaking works. Let's just do the thing that every other thing is doing, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It just works, and we all know it, and we understand it. Stop motorcycle companies trying to be better than just a phone mounted on a handlebar. It's not going to be better than a phone mounted on a handlebar, unless it's something like this. Next question is from the other Scott Lazar. I'm curious about your reflections on the manual model you rode years ago versus this DCT version. What are your thoughts on the DCT as it sits now? So slight confusion here. Maybe it was the first Scott Lazar that understood that this is a manual. I rode a DCT before. Anyway, other Scott Lazar had it backwards, but that's okay, Scott. We don't mind. The DCT that you can get on the Goldwing is a fantastic feature. It's a 7-speed automatic transmission, essentially, which you can shift with triggers if you want to, or you can let the bike shift automatically. It's quite advanced. Honda's been working on it for many, many years, as you might know. And I will tell you that I believe Honda quotes 70% of Goldwings that are purchased now are automatic DCT models. So it's obviously something people like. I think it suits the bike. I think it's a fabulous system. I think it works amazingly well. And I can hardly believe that it's only like, I think it's $1,000 more, or is it $800 more or something like that for the DCT version of a Goldwing. It's a remarkable amount of technology and complexity built into the bike. And Honda is just kind of giving it away because they believe in it. And I appreciate that. Next question is not a question, it's a statement. It's from DJ Schmeat, who says, I used to work for Honda. If you can wheelie a Goldwing, I'd be astounded. Well, be astounded, DJ. I did it. I hope you're proud of me. Last question here is from Not Liam, who says, if a Goldwing was a loaf of bread, what kind of bread would it be? It's even sort of bread colored. in some ways. You got a little pumpernickel kind of whatever. What comes to mind, like, have you ever been to like a fancy restaurant or you get at someone's house and they got like charcuterie board and they're like, oh, this is the sourdough from the place around the corner and it's Kalamata olives and dill and feta and cream cheese and sunflower seeds. And in your head, you're like, what? I just want something to put butter on or whatever. I don't need it to be so complicated. Why is it so complicated? And then you take a bite of it and you're sort of like, okay, whoa, this is like a different bread experience than I've had before. I'm expecting the olives to pop and the dill. Who thought of putting the dill in there? That's really something. I like that a lot. Maybe you don't like that combination of flavors, but you take my point, right? It's a surprising slice of bread. The thing about a slice of bread with olives and feta and dill and whatever, that type of bread, it's good at doing one thing, which is a sort of a surprise and delight in that scenario. If you try to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with that slice of bread, you might be sort of like, all of a sudden it's too much and I don't like it. Point being, if you're trying to do certain things with a Goldwing, it's going to be just fabulous. But it is ultimately, because it is so heavy and so big and so designed for one thing, it's pointed in that direction, which you could argue makes it less good as a daily rider. But I don't think, if you argue, that it doesn't make it a legend, that you'll convince me. I just think it's a stupendous machine and it has an interesting history. And at this point, I'll remind you that Spurge and I just talked about the Honda Goldwing and all of its history and nuance and evolution on an episode of the High Side, Low Side podcast. That podcast is out now. You can find it either in the link in the description of this video or on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Okie doke, everybody. Let's put the sucker on the Daily Rider leaderboard, shall we? Here we go.
Okie doke, everybody. Here we are at the Daily Rider leaderboards, plural. We got a lot of them here, huh? Look at all this. Whew. We're going back, just about 5 years now. How about that? As a reminder of where we are in 2025, at the top of the Daily Rider leaderboard is the CF Moto Ibex 450, followed by the Husqvarna Svartpilen 801 and the Yamaha MT09, as well as these other machines that have run the gauntlet on the Daily Rider route as well. So now we got here a Honda Goldwing Tour. I specified Tour on the little sticker. A regular Goldwing is sort of what the F6B used to be. There's no top box, a little bit shorter windscreen, I think, so it's sort of like smaller, more svelte, a little bit more like performance bagger version of the Goldwing. But the Tour is the classic. It's a touring bike, Goldwing Tour, 50th anniversary. That's what we went with. You think he's going to challenge for the top spots here? I don't think so. These are awfully good motorcycles and machines here. You got your Svartpilen 801, your MT09. That's like good daily riders, all things considered. And it's tricky down here, right? Because these are really different machines. We got two electric bikes here. We got a hybrid Kawasaki Ninja. We got a sport bike Yamaha R9. I gotta be honest, I'm tempted to put it as high as just under the Himalayan 450. The Himalayan 450 is clumsier, clunkier, more vibratey version of a touring bike, but it'll trot down the highway, it'll go down a dirt road, it'll like do all the things, and probably with a little bit more sort of grace and less grunting than you would on a Goldwing. So in some ways, I'm like tempted to put it above a Yamaha R9. It's gonna be better than the electric bikes, sorry, it just is. Which is tricky, right? Because, like I'm riding to work 20 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, I could take a Can-Am Pulse or a Zero S, and it'll be quiet, it'll be fast, it'll be easy. But I just think that the ways that the Goldwing Tour is limited is by being huge and opulent and maybe a little difficult under 5 miles an hour. But other than that, it doesn't have a lot of flaws. So I'm gonna put it over the electric bikes. Yamaha R9 versus Honda Goldwing Tour. What's the better commuter? I mean, the R9 is obviously, it's smaller, it's less expensive. So yeah, is the R9 a better way to get to work? Like, kind of. It's just like so punishing to ride anywhere except a racetrack. Whereas the Goldwing is ultra comfortable everywhere except a racetrack. How do you judge that, really? I'm gonna pick up the magnet so the decision gets made. I'm just gonna do this here. I can't help it, I know. It should probably go here. More people will buy R9s than they will Goldwings, especially to ride to work, and you'll be telling me that it's 850 pounds and I'm 200 pounds and it's easier for me to ride and it's bull crap to call it the Sorry, it's too good. It's too good a bike. It's just too good. to be ranked beneath a sport bike for everyday riding or anything else. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody, on this ride and on the decision for the Daily Rider Leaderboard. One last shout out to the High Side, Low Side podcast. Check it out to learn more about the history, pedigree, evolution, and fun little factoids about the Gold Wing. Spurgeon and I had a great time recording that episode, and it is available to you now. As usual, hope you had a good time on this daily ride. I hope you learned a thing or three, and I hope to see you next time on Daily Rider. See you, everybody.
The pocket of air is quite still. I get just a little bit of buffeting around my upper arms, but it's quite quiet and quite pleasant and quite comfortable. I could probably even do the review whispering if I wanted to, because there's really just